Now it's time for our featured review. And for that, there's a lot of stuff that came out this week. But what we decided to all watch together was the new Netflix movie that just came out that's getting some Oscar buzz for its lead performance. And that movie is Rustin, starring Coleman Domingo.
Rustin is directed by George C. Wolfe, and it stars, yeah, you said Coleman Domingo, and he is Bayard Rustin, who was sort of a close advisor to Dr. King. He's a gay black man, so there's a fair amount of hate that was coming his way from all angles, and he comes to prominence. Although the movie would suggest that he never really got his true due uh, for organizing the March on Washington, leading to the Civil Rights Act and other positive changes in society. And this is a really good story. The problem is it's written by Dustin Lance Black, and that comes through in the worst possible ways. Like, there's a line where one of them is like, last time I checked, smoking that was illegal. And then the other guy says, last time I checked, so were we. It's like, oh, wow, you were holding on to that one for a while, Dustin. And then there's also, like, the next scene, there's literally a scene where they're at a party and one guy just yells NAACP and everyone cheers as if he said, I am a golden god. I was like, are we really doing this? Like, this is Dustin Lance Black. His Oscar win over Martin McDonagh and Mike Leigh hasn't aged about as I would say aged like Milk, but Milk is actually a good movie. So I'll just say it hasn't aged very well. Coleman Domingo is fantastic though. He's electric. He deserves a nomination for this. He is the reason to watch it, and I think Netflix absolutely actually helps his cause because I think more people are going to come across it this way than would have come across it if it came out like Till did, which had like a week in theaters and then disappeared, or even like Darkest Hour or J. Edgar, which are other just kind of lame, outdated historical biopics are released in theaters. George C. Wolfe also isn't. I don't think he's that great of a director. He can't make things feel cinematic. This is the same thing he did with Ma Rainey's Black Bottom. It's too stagey, too unimaginative in how it's shot, and too basic in how it's told. The actors are great. I mean, just like the last movie, but I don't think it's any part due to him. I'm also not sure the movie's necessarily current enough. Like, it has some really kind of old talking points. Like, if it came out in the 90s or something, it would have been a huge hit. But now I just feel like we don't truly need it. I've kind of felt the same about when Chicago 7 came out, and that which was also aided by Netflix, and it could become a big Oscar hit like that one did. I'm glad the movie exists because Rustin is a fascinating and important person, but I don't think this is necessarily a fascinating or important movie. And one thing I will say that I like the casting in the movie because it's not like Anthony Mackie and Idris Elba, Aldous Hodge, or whatever. Like, these people actually look like they belong in the era, like Michael Potts and Glenn Turman, who gives his second best performance of the year behind 80 for Brady, of course. But yeah, I mean, they're all like really good character actors, and it's just not just like a star-filled thing, other than Chris Rock is in it. The destined to be nominated original song in the closing credits is cringeworthy. I think it's a terrible song, and it's absolutely getting nominated. I'm giving it 2 stars. I mean, it's a story that need to be told, but why not do a documentary form and instead of just making like a documentary type biopic?
All right, Zach, you're next. What'd you think?
Yeah, I was not expecting the Dustin Lance Black hate, but I'm here for it. He was thanked in his speech by Sean Penn. I don't know if Sean Penn realized his first name was Dustin. He called him Lance Black. But hey, we all got to give shout outs to our best friend writers. Interesting review. I thought Todd was going to go thumbs up very reluctantly, which is exactly what I'm doing. It's a very reluctant thumbs up. The reason to see this movie is one reason alone. It's the only reason. It's Coleman Domingo. He's fantastic in this movie. I think it's a Philip Seymour Hoffman Capote-like role and performance in the way that he's kind of ostracized by his society around him, but he's so electric and energetic and enthusiastic that you can't help but really fall in love with him. He's got a great look and a great sort of way of delivering lines, which you would assume has to be authentic to the real Rustin. The rest of the movie, though, I mean, it's an interesting kind of behind the scenes look. I guess I'm glad that it didn't go like from birth to death in a very conventional way. It looks at this kind of 3-year period during the development of the March on Washington. But the problem I guess I have with it is, well, number one, the movie has a love triangle with Coleman Domingo and two other characters that I just thought, this is a movie. This feels like they just added this on to reiterate the fact that he's gay and to add artificial drama to it. This is an entire fabrication. It didn't happen in real life. And to me, it's a distraction in the movie. When the drama is already there, the drama is about civil rights in this country. The second problem I have with the movie, I guess, is that the movie spends a great deal of time in buildup. All right. If you thought the wedding and the Deer Hunter went on forever, then the buildup in this movie goes on even more forever for the Civil Rights March. And I'm watching the clock. It's like, man, we're getting close to this thing. We're at the 90-minute mark. We're still not there. This movie's only like an hour and 40 minutes. This movie really shortchanges the actual march. It feels a little bit like a 1-minute scene of Forrest Gump at the march, and then the camera turns away, and we don't even see Martin Luther King. We don't see any of the great speakers. It's a real disappointment, and it's a letdown because the march, of course, was significant, and it's a culmination of all the efforts that this guy goes through over the course of the movie. And then I guess my final flaw is I think the movie tries to villainize Jeffrey Wright. I think he's sort of the head antagonist of this story. I don't know if I see it. There certainly were different philosophical differences between the NAACP and Rustin, but that just feels like a movie. And I kind of feel like the real villains of the story were the white segregationists like Strom Thurmond, who is mentioned in the movie and heard, but like, I don't know. I just feel, okay, you're making a point that it wasn't, the civil rights movement wasn't monolithic. I get it, but I feel as though the friction in some of those scenes felt tacked on like a kind of over-the-top melodramatic movie. But I'm giving it a thumbs up because anytime you watch it, it is interesting in spite of its flaws. It makes you think. It makes you really consider the positions of these characters. And I think the individual scenes are pretty interesting. I really like CCH Pounder. It's great seeing her back in movies again. I think the performances are all fine, although I will say Chris Rock is a little distracting, and I can't disagree with your points about Glenn Turman. But Coleman Domingo is great in it, and it's a 3-star movie, just barely getting over the mark.
Yeah, I'm barely under the mark. I'm right between you guys. I got it at 2.5 stars. I feel like we're all giving the exact same review, but we're just landing in different spots with it.
It happens.
One thing I thought was really interesting was that it like jumped right into the action of this movie with no exposition. Like, I'm watching this and I had to stop for a second and be like, okay, did I miss something? No, I'm 5 minutes into the movie. Okay, I felt like I was 25 minutes into the movie because they were just running with stuff that you thought that you should already know, and then they developed the characters as you went along, which was fine. I mean, it's a very stagey thing, which kind of makes sense since the director of this was also the director of Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, which you can tell by the casting. I mean, you get Coleman Domingo and Glenn Turman, and it was the other one, Michael Potts, I think, was also in Ma Rainey. So I mean, that kind of makes sense. You have give it kind of a stagey feel. The problem was another thing with it, and this goes to the writing too. There's too many characters to completely cut out all exposition. You have to give some context to some of these people they're throwing at you. I mean, it's like they're assuming that we all, wrote a dissertation on the civil rights movement and the March on Washington and know who these people are. We don't. So you know who Rustin is, you know who MLK is, and a couple times they like show a title card on the screen when someone significant pops up. It's like, oh, that's John Lewis. I know that name. But just give us a little bit more context to some of these people. With that said, the performances are really good. I really liked Ami Amin as Martin Luther King. It's such a subtle Dr. King, and you don't get the subtleties when that he's being portrayed that often. And I thought this one was really good because of that. But it's Coleman Domingo's show. You just wish it was a better product around him. So 2.5 stars.
Yeah, I feel you, Terry. One thing that I wrote down was I wish this movie had been on Amazon Prime, because on Amazon Prime, when you pause the movie, you can bring up the X-ray vision and you can see which actor is playing who. That would have really helped with this movie to understand who all the characters are. Sorry, go ahead, Todd. I want to hear your thoughts.
Well, no, I mean, I was just, I mean, we all agree, like, this movie is Coleman Domingo, and this should bring him an Oscar nomination. And I have no problem with the fact that I predicted this for him to win last year. And I don't know what the best actor race is going to bring this year. I suspect this movie is going to be like a one nomination aside from that, which would be the song. But I don't. Do you think this could win best actor over? I mean, because there are some heavy hitters in that category.
This isn't a winning
No.
performance. If he had been nominated before, maybe. But
If it was a better
the narrative
movie.
is not- if it was a better movie, yeah.
But like, yeah, I mean, so I mean, I don't think Capote is necessarily the most beloved movie of in the world either.
But it got a
But it was
Best
a
Picture
Best Picture
nomination.
nominee.
This
Yeah, but
movie
I
is
don't-
not
I-
getting a Best Picture nomination.
No, it's not. Well, I mean, and I Netflix is both the reason for that and the reason why more people are actually going to watch the movie, I guess. But I don't know. I feel like there is a world where he could win Best Actor. It probably would have needed his other big hit movie from Cannes to be released this year and not get pushed till next year. But I don't know. I think that he's safe for a nomination, but I just don't, I mean it's a tough like 6 or 7 that are in that category.
Even with that, it is the year of Coleman Domingo because he does also have The Color Purple coming out. So
That's true.
I think
So maybe they just give him the supporting nomination.
no. I think this is such a. I feel like it's
It's
such
a powerhouse performance.
It's a powerhouse performance. And when you have a performance like this where he is the movie, he should at least get nominated. He should be in the running. It's just a very competitive Best Actor lineup this year.
Yeah, so I'm pulling up the odds on Gold Derby right now, which is how we determine these things. We got to look at the gambling odds.
Of course.
So right now the leader is Cillian Murphy, and then Bradley Cooper, Leonardo DiCaprio, Paul Giamatti, and then Coleman Domingo, Jeffrey Wright are the next two, and they're almost even odds, or almost even to each other.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
So I mean, I feel like a couple of those are locks for nominations. The other ones could go any direction. I don't know.
But you know what? With that you've got it's Coleman Domingo and Jeffrey Wright fighting for that, career achievement, been around long enough and deserve a nomination.
They're in the same boat, and they're both in this movie.
They are both in this movie, but the difference is the Jeffrey Wright performance is for the TIFF Audience Award winner, and Coleman Domingo's performance is the only reason to watch it is his performance.
But it's also a true story. All of those are true stories except for The Holdovers and American Fiction.
Oh, that's interesting.
Is Cillian Murphy's win going to be like the most nondescript Best Actor of all time? I mean, like,
I don't think he's going to win.
That would be
I think Bradley Cooper is going to win Best Actor.
Yeah, that probably.
But Cillian Murphy, it would be like it would be like if Daniel Day-Lewis won for Phantom Thread or something. It's that subtle of a performance.
Yeah,
Robert Redford in The Horse Whisperer, or like Clint Eastwood in any movie that he ever was in. Like it's like the thing you don't think about or notice. It's going to win.
His whole career, though.
No question. I think he's a shoo-in for Best Actor.
It all depends on if they decide to give Bradley Cooper director, because I don't think they'll give him both actor and director. But
can I just say one more thing about Rustin? I know we're talking about this movie in the context of the Oscars. I'm the only one here giving it a thumbs up. I think it's a movie worth seeing because I think there's probably a lot of people who just assume that the March on Washington was either A, completely spontaneous, B, went unopposed by the NAACP, or C, was organized by Martin Luther King. And none of those things were true. And I think this movie does paint a really interesting sort of historical portrait of the lengths and the efforts by which it took to actually make it happen. There's one character who kind of talks about how she's been working on this for like 12, 15 hours a day for like months. That's interesting. I wish there had been more of that in the movie. I almost wish this movie had been directed by like someone with a little bit more eye on like historical accuracy and less drama. Like maybe this is a bad example, but like Paul Greengrass, I think would have been interesting as a director for this. But someone like that, more of
Ava DuVernay.
Yeah, I think Ava would have. Well, yeah, she would do anything really well. But the individual scenes in this movie work. It is worth watching. I can't say that it was ever boring or I ever wanted to turn it off. It's just flawed, and I don't know. I feel like the flaws are not as important as the things that make it worth it. So I agree. Terry's exactly right. We're all on the same page about it. Again, I just feel like it's worth watching.
Well, who was
I'm
the
glad it's
director
in
of
the world.
Till? I feel like that would have been like if I had more of that tone. I feel like it could have been a
Oh.
lot better too.
Yeah, what was her name?
Chinonwe Chukwu.
Yeah, that's not a
Yes.
bad one. That's not a bad one. Um, yeah, I like Todd. You said something right at the end of your review that I think still kind of rings true in that it's
Like
an
Steve
important
McQueen.
story.
Yeah, it's just not an
Steve
important
McQueen
movie.
would have been good too.
Steve
It's
McQueen would have been
important.
amazing.
Of course, yeah. I mean, parts of it looked like Lover's Rock almost. Like there's a lot of
Mm,
his stuff that came into this, at least in style. But
but yeah, it's an important story. Just wish it was a better movie.
Yes.
Yeah. All right, so we've got 3 stars from Zach, 2.5 from me, 2 stars from Todd. It is on Netflix, and whether it gets the Oscar nomination for Coleman Domingo or not, it's worth you watching his performance just for that. So, catch it. It's on Netflix now, and catch it now before it gets buried under all the other awardsy stuff that's going to be coming to Netflix over the next month. So,